Okay, Heather.
Hi.
This is going to be a kind of reverse podcast, but I want to segue first into, I've done 2 clarity sessions with you, once before my trip and once after, and they were both pivotal in the beginning and the end of the trip to have. So that kind of led us to doing what we're doing today. And on top of that, it's been almost a year since my fire, and I'm ready to talk about everything. So you suggested doing this, and I said, okay.
Yes.
So go ahead.
All right. So welcome to your podcast.
I love that. Thank you. I'm a guest.
Yeah. So good to have you on your own show.
All right.
This is a treat. So thank you for having me on here to do this. I really appreciate the opportunity to ask you some questions because, as I understand, this podcast has come out of all of the changes, all the transitions that you've been through in this past year, which have been monumental. So I met you probably 2 years ago, I would say, ish, at Stretch Lab, as we've talked about before. And so I knew you there, and you were working a lot of hours. So if I go back in my memory, you were there a lot of the time. You were in a leadership role there. And I remember you telling me about your studio, and I was like, wow, you have a studio too? And you kind of told me about some of your business endeavors, and I always saw you as like a person who really, had drive to create and build and grow. And part of me had a question of why you were also splitting your energy in another business when you had so many great things going.
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
That was something that came as a result out of the fire. Is I have always been in that caregiver role. I was an occupational therapist, always taking care of somebody. And so I always put myself last. And then you have kids, right? And so then you just kind of get shoved last. And, society programs us to think that you have to have that 9-to-5 job. And I've always had that 9-to-5 job and a business at the same time. So that was just kind of normal for me. And then it was
And a family.
Yeah, right.
9-to-5, a business and a family.
Right. And so it was just normal for me to just shove myself aside and my goals aside. Meanwhile, every year I would keep writing the same goals. And then it was when I got the leadership role at Stretch Lab where I realized I was pouring so much of my energy into helping her when I wasn't even doing that for my own studio. And then that's kind of what opened the door to looking at wait a minute, what about my goals? Each year I keep putting them off for why? What was I doing?
Yeah.
And then the fire happened 2 weeks later. So.
Okay, so yeah, tell me about that. So it sounds like, again, what I'm hearing is you were super busy, taking on a lot of responsibility, pouring into other people, pouring into other businesses, really not even noticing that you weren't pouring into yourself. And so, yeah, it sounds like you were focused on, did it feel like you were focused on, keeping afloat?
Yes. And several weeks before the fire, I had, around this time of year, I get a new planner for the next year. And I, move the goals on to the next planner. And I was last year, I was no, I'm done doing that. So I put it hand wrote it on a piece of paper, and I taped it on my wall in the family room. And I had what I thought a very clear vision of where I was going. And then literally 2 weeks later, the fire happened.
So what was the clear vision about?
All the goals that I wanted for myself, all the things that I wanted to do that I was pouring into the energy of helping Stretch Lab, but not for myself. Okay. And so the goals were to quit Stretch Lab so that I could pour all that energy into me. And so I was okay, perfect, 2025, I'm going to, quit Stretch Lab and I'm going to start doing things for me. And then I was able to, but I just didn't realize the fire would be the catalyst that took me there.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be my control. I would do all those things. So
it sounds like you were going from this autopilot mode of having intentions, but not really bringing attention to your intention.
Right.
And so you were getting the result of that. You were getting the same. more of the same, because you weren't bringing full attention to your intentions.
Correct.
And then you did it a new way. You put it up, you saw it for yourself, and then all of a sudden there was a massive response that
Yes.
you were not expecting.
Spontaneous.
A spontaneous
Right.
response.
The dishwasher was not running. This was totally spontaneous.
Right.
Which adds a layer of even more holy crap to my mindset. Like, this just happened.
Yeah, what a shock. So what were you doing
Bye.
at the moment when you found out about the fire?
I was going to get donuts. It was a Tuesday night. Stress lab was slow, so I left early, and I had a morning meeting, and I just thought, well, let me go get some donuts for our morning meeting, and I was just gone for 20 minutes, and in that 20 minutes, the fire happened. So I came home from getting donuts and found my house on more fire than I had anticipated. Like, I thought it was just a small fire, but now looking back, I can realize that they say it had probably started like a few moments after I left.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
I know.
So thank goodness you went to get the donuts in a way, right?
Yeah. So I came home just like normal, opened up my garage, didn't think anything of it, and then through the screen door, I saw the cloud of, like, I didn't know it was smoke, but I just thought it was like the door shut. Maybe a cat had shut the door, and that's what I was seeing. And so I opened up the door. He ran out, and then I realized the house was on fire.
What a crazy thing where, like, zero expectation and something so unexpected.
Yeah.
Every day you're so used to going home, and then this one time,
Yeah.
something totally unexpected. Well, do you remember at the time what fears were gripping you, or what happened? You know, what happened next?
Prior to the fire,
After, or like during, like what unfolded? How did it unfold?
I will say that once, in the moment of realizing that I had no control over the fire, all of the fears that I had pre-fire became nothing, because I was now in survival mode. And even coming out of that, what I was so afraid of before the fire was like, why? I became instantly like this woman that I've always thought I could be, wanted to be, in a moment. And so I can look back and think, like, I can't even believe I was afraid of some of those things, right? Mm-hmm. But at that time, that's where I was in my healing, where I was still full of all that fear.
And were those fears like stepping forward into your business and taking steps for you?
Being seen.
Being seen.
Stepping forward and not, as a business owner, I could always kind of take a step back. The studio kind of just, runs itself with all the other teachers too. So a lot of times people didn't even know I was the owner. So, and I liked it that way. It can stay hidden. I don't have to do anything. And thankfully it has, lasted as long as it has with my mindset of that. So now that I spend literally 7 days a week pouring my energy into what I want to do, I look back, how did I work for other people? Right? Like, I did though,
And like 8 hours of one-on-one stretching people a day, like that's a lot of work. I don't think people realize how much work that is.
I know, and then the physical pain, not pain, but just the fatigue that I felt.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was definitely in just autopilot, just work mode.
Okay. So the fire brought about this new, like, freedom from those old fears in a way. And I'm sure there was, like, everything felt heightened at that time, but there was new direction.
Yeah.
And, okay. So after going through that disaster, was there anything that felt unsurmountable in the face of, like, what you were moving into?
No. And which I found interesting, because if anything should take me down, you would think something massive like that. Like, it just made me grow even higher. And so, but I didn't consciously think of that. It was just kind of just how life was unfolding. I just had to keep up. And I would often tell people, like, my life was like this far, and then emotionally I'm right here. Like I needed to like speed up my emotions to match where my life was going. And so I didn't have a choice because my life was heading that way anyway. So I had to catch up. So in that way, I'm glad it happened that way, because otherwise I'd still be sitting in all my fears.
Yeah.
You know, this literally, you know, the whole cliche of lighting a fire under their ass. That's what I say. The fire was what I needed to just, come on, move into who you need to be.
It's amazing how things
I know.
work. It's just amazing.
I know.
Yeah, and my next question was about what surprised you the most, but it almost
That
sounds like
surprised me the most, but the other thing that surprised me the most was how giving everybody was.
Yeah.
You know, I have been warped by social media, the news, constant negativity, right? You forget that there's a lot of great people in the world, and people that I don't even know donated things, right?
Yeah.
So most of the things that you see in my apartment are all donated. That was something that I genuinely loved and got me through that. That surprised me.
That's amazing. I can remember being at Stretch Lab and the jar set out for you, and kind of just the buzz going around and all the people there who wanted to kind of chip in and help.
And that was the energy around everybody reaching out, wanting to help, wanting to donate, wanting to give me things. It was just, I actually had like a friend and her mom and another friend were like my managers, and they would manage everybody trying to give things to me. And it became like, 7 or 8 of them had to coordinate together to just organize how many people wanted to help. And those few days after the fire, like moving into a hotel and having to get adjusted to that, knowing that all of that was happening was just lifting me up. Like, all these people were planning my life for me, right? So then I could focus on figuring out where I'm gonna live, like, shutting off all the utilities at the house, doing all of the things, right? While all of those people rebuilt me.
Yeah, that must have been so touching.
It was, I mean, it was just one of the best things of my life,
And also, it sounds like that really forced you into also being able to receive, which is another part of how we grow, right?
That was another lesson from the fire, is having to receive. I could give. I'm that caregiver, right? But it very rarely ever received. And the fire taught me I had to sit back and receive, which was difficult in the first few days. And then I realized I don't have anything. I need to take some things from people who are wanting to give them to me, right? So I needed to be open to receiving them. But that was definitely a lesson that I had to move through.
Yeah. It's so powerful. It's like one of the most simple but most powerful messages a person can ever tune into, is that ability to receive is truly where the only place that you can give from. So you can be in that state of overgiving in insane amounts, offering all of the hours of your day to this kind of service, and totally empty on the inside without even knowing it. But the moment you shift into allowing yourself to receive, you realize like you don't have to endlessly give from a place of emptiness, and it doesn't work.
Yes.
And
I feel more capable of giving now than I could before, because I'm filled up.
Yeah.
I'm filled up now.
And then what you give now is of better quality, goes farther and supports you more.
Yes.
And so once people really tune into like what it is to receive, and sometimes it takes that, like, you had no choice. You had to let those people do for you, and what a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful and inspiring.
I know. That's why we're doing this, because it was very difficult for me to talk about all the good things that came from the fire.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about that. What is it like to be in that disastrous moment, have everyone kind of sad and upset, and all of these feelings towards you. Maybe there's this feeling, maybe there's pity, maybe there's empathy, maybe there's sympathy. I don't know. I'm sure you're getting it all. And then to receive the goodness and actually allow those people to help you in the situation to build you up in a completely new way. And then be faced with that, oh, like, is it okay for me to say that I'm doing better than I was before? And do I owe somebody an explanation for actually receiving the goodness and for feeling better? It's almost sometimes like there's this urge to want to excuse yourself from feeling better.
And I did. I isolated myself for a few weeks because I was torn. Somebody said something to me, and it was a comment of like, you don't look like you just went through a fire. And it really made me like, what am I supposed to look like? And I really didn't understand what I was supposed to look like. And so that stuck with me, and I kept thinking, okay, well, you know, society wants to hang on to that grief, you know, whenever you have a tragedy, right, everybody should be sad and crying and miserable. And I did, yes, of course I had those days, but the goodness that came out of it kind of outweighed the grief that I was feeling. So I still had the grief, but I was able to move through it easily because I had so much goodness. But then somebody said something to me, and kind of made me retreat some more, be like, oh, I better not go out into the world because I don't want anybody to see that I'm actually happy. So I didn't. And I just hung out here for a few weeks, and I didn't want to go out because I didn't want anybody to see me happy. And then I started kind of talking to some friends about that and like thinking, started to get a little bit more comfortable. Like I can rejoice in how much goodness because it's there. It's already there. Like I can't deny it, you know, and it just keeps happening already. You know, it's not anything I can turn off. People are still giving and still donating. So I have to face it. So that's, I will say, the hardest part, which is what led us to today, to be able, for me to be able to freely and publicly talk about how much good it is now, and how hard it was for me to admit that because of what society thinks or whatever that person thinks I should look like.
Yeah. And I can imagine that is going to be touching a lot of people. So many people can relate to that feeling of like then needing to hide your joy because it's this invisible idea that you owe someone something, which then takes you back into fear, shame, and guilt, when really the opportunity is, like you said, once you acknowledged that and saw those fears and realized like the value of sharing the goodness that comes from tragedy. And that's such an important message for people to hear.
Which led to our clarity session before the trip, is how I thought people would assume I was lying.
Yeah.
That I didn't just go through something tragic like that.
Yeah.
So that was that old message that, you know, you're not telling the truth. So what am I supposed to look like? I don't know what that means, right? So that's where I was stuck. And then you helped me with that. And I think going on the trip, I was like away from the people who knew me, so I could be happy. I could be myself. And I didn't have to talk about the fire. I didn't have to talk about it. I could just be happy. And then we had that clarity session. I can embrace my whole story. I can talk about the fire. I can be happy. I can say that I had a lot of goodness come from it. And not one person judged me.
When you come from that place of explaining, what happens then is that, you know, that question of, oh, you look good after a fire, like, is probably not even going to show up because that internal insecurity that you've cleared, and you did some of that work in that session, I saw it get lighter. It was like, oh, of course, like as a child, I felt I needed to explain
And prove
myself, and it was never right. And you know, there was always this kind of like,
what you said earlier is hide my joy. I had to hide my joy. I had to hide everything. And so I carried all that with me, and then the fire made me be seen. And so I don't have to hide anymore.
And a fire is really purification.
Right.
So when we
Cleanliness,
look through all the traditions, a fire is a major purifying force. It comes and burns the impurities and leaves you with the real
rawness.
essence
Yeah.
of something. And so to honor that is to also honor that as you now have like cleared some of the fears around sharing that. And now when you share, it's just like, this is the place where goodness grows from. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that takes a lot of courage. So applauding you for showing up for yourself and doing that work.
Well, thank you for you helping me,
Yeah.
And that's another great thing is I have all these people that are willing to help me sort through all of this. Mm-hmm. And that in itself is a gift.
And how many people can relate to that sense of growing up with this invisible over responsibility? Like kids who grew up in family situations where they had to take care of things that kids, aren't necessarily
Right.
supposed to take care of.
Where the child becomes a parent.
Where the child becomes a parent and then the child doesn't know how to do that thing and then gets in trouble for doing it wrong and then is confused and then like always kind of like, uh-oh, if I take on this responsibility, if I step out and be seen in this way, there's a chance I'm going to get blamed for something. And that responsibility now is danger zone. And so...
hide, retreat.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so it's like, I want responsibility, but it's so dangerous. It's
Yeah.
just not a place I'm willing to go. And so then once we meet that with compassion and be like, oh, that was just an old program that was trying to keep me safe when I was young. And then just kind of setting that program aside, then you're able to step into that power.
That's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah. So, yeah, you kind of answered the question on how did you deal with people's expectations, including your own. So you put initially some pressure on yourself to kind of prove that, prove what?
I felt like prior to the fire, when you can't visibly see all the trauma that I have gone through. Mm-hmm. And because I'm a happy person, because I'm a peaceful person, people tend to doubt that I have gone through as much trauma as I had. When the fire happened, now everybody saw me go through trauma. So I didn't really feel like I had to prove anymore that I have been through trauma. Everybody knew it. But then I felt like I had to prove that like I didn't cause it. It was something that was spontaneous. And I don't know why. Really. It was maybe that was that message that I had as a child. I had to prove myself all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds, and what I've gathered from our conversations together, our interactions together, is that real deep healing from having to prove yourself has been the biggest gift.
Yeah.
And when you're no longer approaching a situation with that need to prove yourself, you actually don't have to, and nobody's asking you to.
What I equate it to is like I have so much more brain capacity now to focus on so many other things because I don't have those messages anymore. I don't have those fears anymore. I have full capacity to create and give, which I never was truly before.
Yeah,
right?
It was like servitude, but not giving.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And it was more of a giving and not taking and replenishing myself.
And that is also not doing anyone service.
No.
When we give but don't allow to receive.
And I was preaching all of that, and I thought I was practicing it, but no way.
It's so funny how sometimes we think we're doing that and we're not.
I know.
So there's such a different feeling when you're actually receiving.
Yes, yes. It's a different
like,
feeling when you're actually aware of what you spent so much time on before, right? Like, wow, what did I do with all of my time before the fire? Like, I was worried all the time. I was anxious all the time. I was stressed all the time. Like, now I have all the time to create. Like, and it just keeps flowing out of me, you know?
I love that. Yeah. So there was so many positive outcomes. And it sounds like the challenges now in sharing your story are not a problem. And we can see how this event has changed your life. And like you said, your focus is different. It's on creating and pouring into the things that you feel are nourishing and that nourish others, and the best way that you can do that. So I know another interesting aspect that if you want to share about is taking on this podcast and the role that has been in your healing.
I can't remember what it was like before I had the idea of the podcast. Like once that door opened, I can't remember what it was like before when it was closed.
Okay.
And it became because it was time. I felt confident now I could tell my story. There, a few years have passed now. I had enough hindsight. I have enough wisdom now that I felt confident that I could tell the story. And then the more people I talked to, they'd be like, yeah, I do a podcast. I was like, okay, I already got some guests lined up. So then it just kind of evolved that way. And then the more I do, the more people want to do, the more people want to share. And so it's been a very interesting and nice process. It's like I have a platform now, not only for my own voice, but to help other people too. And I didn't expect that.
And how freeing has it been to just show up and be seen and share that part of yourself?
I'll say in the first 2 episodes, I want to say the very first one, I was very, very nervous. And then once I watched it back and edited it, I was like, okay, this isn't as hard as I thought it was. So of course the second one became easier than the third one. And then now, I have this in my apartment now. Like it's just this cozy little spot. So it's really interesting to see how it's not only helping me, but it's also helping the people that I'm also talking to.
Yeah.
And that makes me just want to keep going.
Yeah. So this has added another layer of how you can serve, how you can feel served, how you can fill your cup.
Yes.
At the same time, you're like pouring into everything.
Yes.
I love that. And so this also, I don't know if it was the podcast that inspired your trip.
There was a lot of things that inspired my trip. There was, to be truly, truly honest, there was a part of me that has always wanted to do something like that for myself. But it was buried so deep because I was giving to everybody else that I just thought it was never going to happen. And the fire happened, and then I sold the house, and then that's what opened the door, like, oh, this could be a possibility. And so then I thought, well, how can I make it intentional? Like, I just didn't want to just take a road trip, right? I wanted to make it intentional. And then that's kind of how the podcast documentary, I just figured, why not interview people that I meet along the way? And whoever crosses my path, whoever wants to do it, let's do it. And it turns out everybody wanted to do it. So it just kept giving me motivation to just keep going. So
you got in your car, you packed up your equipment, you decided you were going to do this route, and you mapped it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that was from Ohio to Indiana.
So it was, like I said, there was something in me that wanted to take this trip. The Ozarks seemed to be like a destination point. I had never been west. I've been all through the East Coast, mountains, all of the above. I didn't think anything of it. So I was like, all right, well, why not go west? I could do like a loop trip, right? And so that's kind of how it evolved. But then now that I know what the trip was, that was the whole intention, was to go back to the mountains and go back to those roads that took me back to my child self, so that on the loop back, I can integrate and be my whole self. It was just, you can't even make this stuff up.
I was going to say,
you can't even make this stuff up.
This needs to go in your book, your next book, because you've already written a book.
Well, I'm on 3, right? It'd be a trilogy, correct. So this whole like loop trip is just really what it was. It was, meeting my child self and then coming back, integrating, so that I'm whole. And then those people that I met along the way were the ones just kind of, just gently nudging me to keep going. Mm-hmm. And it was just lovely. The first week I came back, I wanted to just get back into my routine and just kind of go back into that old mindset. And then I was like, no, I can't. There's just no way I can go backwards. Mm-hmm. Like I have to embrace this new part of me. Mm-hmm. So it was after our clarity session, the one afterwards, it was like, I can embrace this now.
Yeah. And so it was interesting for me to meet with you, get caught up, do some of this podcast, and you invited me on. And then I offered you that clarity session, and we kind of uncovered some of that childhood patterning. And that really was the day before you were leaving for your trip.
Yes. Yes.
And so you kind of had this deeper compassion for yourself as you were leaving, that you weren't looking for that validation on the road.
Yeah.
And so that like
Open the door.
cleared
to,
a layer.
Yes.
And then you went on the road and you had to face even more fears because you connected to all these childhood memories and like what was this deeper insecurity that had happened on
Yes.
your childhood trips.
And then on the way back, all made sense, but then talking through it with you, with the session we had after the trip, I was able to really fully bring everything up with all the shame and the guilt that I felt. Not guilt, but shame. And now I don't have to have that anymore.
Yeah. So it sounded like you processed a lot on the trip and then
Brought it all to the surface.
brought it to the surface and then almost like it was a bad thing, like, oh, I had all this stuff that needed to be brought to the surface.
Yes.
But the more times we lean in with that vulnerability, and this is why in the work that I do, I like to have a container where you meet once a week or every other week to unravel the things that come up so that, just like you said, those new pieces continue to open, continue to open, continue to open. And more goodness flows into your life and then into everything around you. And that's why it's such a gift to give yourself and others,
I know.
right? So we were able to go through some of that and instead of feeling any of the shame, realize how much you had actually processed, celebrate yourself fully, and
enjoy the people that I met.
Enjoy the people that
Not
you met.
look back at it like, you know, remember the scary parts of it. I can look back and be like, yeah, I did have some fear, but I also had all these other great things that happened too.
Yeah, and then embracing that fear and being like thankful for the lessons that it brought you, because now what I heard was when you really embrace that fear and all of it, every ounce of it, that you could process. And then coming back into, like you said, your regular life, it's like, oh yeah, I get to keep that mindset. I get to drive on my bridges and feel safe and proud and enjoy the view.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't have to have any shame wrapped around anything anymore.
And all the synchronicities that continue to show up in your life after opening these little gates.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I'm planning another road trip to go back to a couple of the places that I went to the first time. And I want to plan a retreat, which is what the whole purpose is. But I also want to do kind of the same route as myself now, where there's going to be no nervous system reactions. There's going to be no fear. There's going to be no terror. There's going to be no panic. And
or if there is, you can process it.
Right, and I'll be able to process it faster than I was able to the first time around. Mm-hmm. So, because I don't know, I just have a desire to go back.
Yeah.
I can't really fully explain it yet, and I think I have to sit with this a little bit longer of why I feel this need to have to go back. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I don't know. That's where I'm at right now.
Well, repetition, it's why, for example, my daily yoga practice gives me so much information because I do the same thing every day for 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, that gives you so much information, and it doesn't give you so much information maybe every single time, or if it does, you're not open to hearing it. But that process of revisiting something in repetition and hearing the lesson from another angle and then integrating it, it brings such a richness to how then you're able to observe a situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So probably going back again, it just helps process that whole loop of those concepts that you've been working on for the last,
I love that.
few years.
Yeah, I love that. And then with the intention of planning a retreat and get all this new healing and creative energy I got in me.
And just that you said that, maybe later on we can discuss, but I know of a person on the Ozarks who has a retreat center.
Oh, really? I don't want to go to the Ozarks again. I only want to go to Indiana, Illinois, and then back. So a little shorter of a loop. Yeah. But who knows? I mean, I'm not going to limit myself to places to go now, where before the trip I did.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just a getting older type of thing where I was like, I'm an old lady now. I can take the back roads where I go slow, right? But it was an actual avoidance. But I didn't really understand that until the trip. I was avoiding the roads that were terrifying to me and hadn't really even fully seen that. I just thought I was becoming that old lady that was driving the back roads. So all of this, it'd be a year and a couple of weeks since my fire, and I just can't even believe how different my life is now.
Well, I appreciate all of the insight that you have been able to share with me and with everyone on your...
Thank you for giving me the space to do this and the encouragement to be able to publicly and freely talk about all of this. So thank you for that.
Such a great story. I'm so happy that things turned out the way they did and continue to unfold for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Heather.
All right. Thank you, Kelly.